Esteemed participants and guests, on behalf of Dr. Muhammad Al-Ali, CEO of Trends Research and Advisory, I am delighted to welcome you all to the second day of Trends First Education Conference, entitled The Future of Education, Drivers of Change and Innovation. My name is Sultan Rabi'i. I am a researcher at Trends Research and Advisory, and it's my pleasure to serve as the presenter of this conference. Now, I'd like to introduce the first panel titled Education Strategy, Policy and Leadership, Assessing International Best Practices and Case Studies, which will be moderated by Mia Ojegovic, Head of Research at Abdullah Al-Ghareer Foundation of Education. Please note that translation from Arabic to English is also available with the headphones provided, Channel 1 for Arabic and Channel 2 for English. The panelists will have a total of 50 minutes to present and 15 minutes of open discussion. May the moderator and the panelists please proceed.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you Trends Research and Advisory for hosting this timely and invaluable discussion. My name is Mia Ojegovic, and I will be your moderator. I'd like to welcome you to this afternoon's panel, where three distinguished speakers will share their expertise on educational strategy, policy, and leadership, assessing international best practices and case studies. The agenda for the panel is as follows. Each speaker will present for 15 minutes. This will be followed by a 15-minute discussion. Then we'll have 10 minutes for a break before the next panel. First, we will hear from Ms. Sara Al-Saadi, who is the Group Head, Emiratization and Culture at Al-Dad Education, a leading education group in Abu Dhabi, which provides inclusive and innovative learning to inspire and empower communities. Ms. Al-Saadi is also a social media educator and hosts the Community Platform podcast. She holds a master's degree in science education from the University of Wollongong in Dubai and is currently a PhD researcher at the University of Bath. Second, we will hear from Dr. Vadim Grishkin, who is a professor at the Department of Informatization of Education at Moscow City University, Russia's leading teachers training institution. Dr. Grishkin's expertise lies in digital education environment formation, methods of teaching IT at school and university, and computer technology. He holds a PhD in education sciences and is the corresponding fellow of the Philosophy and Theory of Education Department at the Russian Academy of Education. Third, we will hear from Dr. Christian Alexander, who is a strategic studies expert at Trends Research and Advisory. Dr. Alexander is also an advisor at Gulf State Analytics, a Washington, D.C.-based geopolitical risk consultancy, and has previously worked as an assistant professor at the College of Humanities and Social Sciences at Zayed University. He holds a PhD in political science from the University of Utah and holds an MA in political science, sociology, and psychology from the Heidelberg University in Germany. So first, we'll start with Ms. Al-Saadi. How can organizations, especially those working in education, embed positive work culture into their strategic operations? And how important is this?
We were discussing this just while we were sitting there. It's very difficult to put in 5 minutes an 80,000 word dissertation, but from my 14 years of experience, we did do some policies and we worked on strategies with the government to enhance the work environment, basically. When we talk about, HR, now in recent years, we're talking about people and work culture. And we're talking about, like understanding how a person would come to work motivated, for example. So we're looking at people and culture specifically in organizations, and we don't call it HR anymore. I mean, we are overcoming that era, and we're progressing into something new. There are some strategies that I think works for us, at least. So an open conversation, like a two-way conversation with your staff member, is really important in terms of transparency, understanding the person in front of you, understanding what they want from their work, because it's not anymore about how much I get in terms of salary or what is my job title or anything like that. It's really about me waking up in the morning and wanting to go to that job, that I'm putting 8 hours to 9 hours a day, leaving my family behind, for example, for a working woman, and then just going into a work environment. So having that conversation between like management and staff is really important, and it always works, that transparency. There is also the employee recognition and appreciating that staff that would come into work and give most of his time and energy for that job. As well as we currently work on the professional development opportunities. For example, for UAE nationals, we look at all kinds of opportunities. I'll give the UAE national as an example. We work with a lot of universities that enhance skills and strengths of those UAE nationals, especially the fresh graduates. And then we work with different governments like Human Resources Authority or NAFIS currently. So they're doing amazing. I mean, the country has an agenda to ensure that UAE nationals are progressing in the workforce. But at the same time, even from my research, I feel that the government is very aligned. So they know that, for example, there is a gap in bachelors of education. So they are working towards that. So probably they'll be in the next years introducing more of that topic. So things like we want to see Bachelor of SEN, let's say, or a bachelor degree in education management. So these things that will support our companies to go ahead and recruit this talent. There is the other thing, which is work-life balance. As we saw maybe yesterday, some of you saw in the news about Sharjah having the flexible working hours and how it really worked from their numbers and their statistics. So many companies work around flexible working hours, even though, for example, companies like schools, we cannot take teachers out of school and then give them that work, the flexible working hours. However, we will navigate through to make it work in a way that maybe we would support that staff member to have their kid an extra hour or two in school, or we would look after that child. Things like that that would really help if we really look into considering how the staff feels and how much he gives out of his time just for that job. There are things like employee health and wellness. So in my past years, in people and culture, I call it now, it's not HR anymore, we really focus on well-being of the staff. So there are multiple companies that introduce specific programs such as the Employee Assistant Program, which really focuses on having that counselor to help you through your day if you really require it. So companies are not just looking at how much the staff will bring business into the education. For example, we are in education, so we don't look just how much is this teacher putting hours and burnout and all that. No, we really, really care about that person. We really want that person's well-being to be really good so they can give to that student. Because we are growing a full generation of people, and we want to ensure that that staff member is also happy in where they are. We do things like team building, but we do it differently. So we collaborate with different departments so we can ensure that everyone is just on the same page, basically, to come and join those. It's not just a team building, it's just like a collaboration kind of activities. I can't discuss it in detail at the moment, but honestly, these team building activities really make a difference for that staff member. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. And the next question, from your experience, what are the main strategies and policies that organizations should implement to attract and retain talent?
Okay, so again, I will speak from maybe some people are struggling with recruiting Emiratis in the education sector. So there are certain things that we are using. It's not impossible because honestly, a lot after the NAFIS program, so many companies were able to overachieve targets, honestly. So I'm talking from that specific point right now. And that is also implemented across all staff. We are looking at, like, again, development, training, succession planning is so important. We look at a teacher, we don't want her to stay as a teacher. We want her to go again as a vice principal, as a principal. We really need to invest in that person if we want them to stay. In terms of sustainability, to ensure that your policies are sustainable across, especially when you have a whole group of schools, for example, like 30 schools. Just ensure that your policies and strategies are coming out from some place, which is maybe the headquarter, that can go across and be very organic in a way and very sustainable. There is one more thing that I don't know if many speak about, but this topic is raising now, and I also write about it in my research, which is cultural sensitivity. Ensure not to other. That's one thing that I strongly feel about. When we talk about culture sensitivity with staff, we tell them, guys, like, what's okay for you is not okay for someone else. Like, what is okay for, let's say, an Emirati is not okay for a European, let's say. We need to be very open and transparent with these conversations. We do a lot of activities around cultural sensitivity, which is really nice. And we ensure that everyone is basically aligned on understanding differences, especially when you're bringing, for example, a teacher from Europe or someone with a totally different thinking in terms of that culture gap. We ensure to be fair with that staff and train so they can be basically, they won't be like shocked in other ways. So it's for both ways. So we can see even in regards to cultural sensitivity, in private sectors, we are, for example, receiving many UAE nationals. We need to start removing that stereotypes and just accepting and not othering and understanding that you guys are growing a third culture as well in those schools. So this is really important to consider. I feel our job is really critical because we need to understand how to pick that person to do that job. In terms of, for example, incentives and recognition, that is also important to understand that the person you're bringing into the company, how much is he investing, how much is he putting, how much did he invest in his training and his education and all that. We need to be fair in that aspect. There are portals like for employee engagement and satisfaction that really would help companies, such as, I'll give you two examples. Great Place to Work is a good platform. There is also Culture Amp, which I absolutely love. That will give you an indication of just how is that employee satisfied in the company. There's a lot of options that you can navigate through, which is like a heat map, and it will give you an indication. I mean, it's research. You really need to look into how much is there that the staff is really looking for from their employer. There is also, we spoke about the professional development opportunities, just to offer and develop new skills and advance their careers and motivate them. I believe that's very important, and it's very, I mean, it's been there for years. but also have that two-way conversation, like I said in the beginning, is really important. Again, I want to dig deep into the work-life balance. I don't know how much time we have more.
You have time.
We have time? Okay. Look at what government initiatives are doing, for example, like the PLF, which is the Parent-Friendly Label Initiative under the Early Childhood Authority. This is just great. I mean, the government realized there is a gap. Let's work on it. Just be aligned. I believe being aligned with government initiatives is really important as well, because they talk about flexible working hours. They talk about the importance of the parent being with their child. They talk about why is it important, for example, to have 4 days a week instead of 5 days a week. And they give you the numbers to look into as well. One thing that I've seen in my research, especially when it comes to emeritization specifically, is clear communication. Just the employer should ensure that they are giving clear job descriptions. This is what you're expected to do. This is what we're expecting from you. What are you expecting from us? That like two-way conversation really makes a difference. So even when we look at numbers and statistics from work culture, it will tell you, guys, it's that two-way conversation between manager and staff. So it really, really does a difference. There's also the opportunities for growth and advancement, which we spoke about. We can't expect a teacher to be in her place and just work in that job for the next 15 years. We really need to look into, again, government aligning. So now what charter schools, for example, are doing is they're picking the best teachers and ensuring that we are doing the full work to promote them, to give them a career path, and this is what you're expected to do, and this is what we want you to do to give back to your country, which is really awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was really interesting. It's very interesting to hear the perspective from a people and culture point of view, and especially everything that you brought up about the UAE and aligning to national priorities. I think that's key as well. So thank you very much for that. We will now move on to Dr. Vadim Grishkin. Whenever you're ready.
Yes, I'm ready. May I start?
Yes.
Okay, I will share my presentation. Please, just a moment. Do you see it?
Yes.
Is everything okay? Okay. Dear colleagues, I'm very glad to see you here. Unfortunately, online. We'll be glad to see you offline. First of all, I want to introduce myself. I'm Vadim Grishkin. I am from Moscow City University. It's interesting university because it belongs not to the Russian Federation like most Russian universities. We belong to the Moscow City government, like a Moscow school. We prepare teachers for the Moscow schools. It's very important, and I will speak about the teacher professional development too. Excuse me, my English is not so good, and I will read slides because I want to transfer to you some details of our approach. We speak with these teachers about how to teach if you use information technology. Not about information technology, how to teach to use it. And we have a special approach. I think it's fundamental, and it will be very interesting to speak about it with you. First of all, I want to say that training of informatization of education, like we say in Russia, it's a system training to correct, justified, and pertinent use of means of information technologies has to enter into the content of teachers' preparation in the informatization of education field. Just a moment. Oh, okay. In our universities, we have a separate disciplines which belong to this area. For example, technical and audiovisual training means or technologies, information and communication technologies in education, internet educational resources, techniques and of estimation and use educational software, modern means of estimation training results, and several courses of various disciplines training techniques. It's not a good way because in this case we can see separation and incoherence of the disciplines taught by different teachers. Next, according to the name, the specified disciplines are focused on studying of the training means instead of on preparation of teacher for professional activity with use of such means. And the next studying of technologies is consecutive, like we say in Russia, through a comma, 1, 2, 3, and second. Information of education, informatization of education. I think it will be an association of disciplines in the uniform complex aimed at acquaintances of teachers with essence and specific of informatization of education, or IE, if shortly. IE is the name of a separate training course with a fundamental character. We think so and we do so. Next, informatization of education is the name and the systematizing factor of the block of the training courses presented in programs of teachers' preparation. I think it's not only in Russian universities. It belongs to the most pedagogical university in the world. Informatization, and we see that there are several special characteristics of this process. For example, IE treated as a process can't act as a name of a training course. It's a process. Informatization of education can be considered as a teacher's activity, what they have to do, directed on ensuring education with objective, reliable, actual information and means of its processing. Look, please, training of activity in this case. It's very important. Every year we update our definition about the informatization of education. Now you can see it, this variant like now, and we can discuss some details of this definition, but I think it's very important to treat informatization of education as shown. Informatization of education is the area of person scientific and practical activities. Please look, activities directed on application of technologies and means of information collecting, storage, processing, and distribution, providing systematization, available information of new knowledge in education for training, psychological, and pedagogical purposes achievement. It's important to define informatization of education so. There are some features if we do so. There is no concept computerization with the phrase informatization of education. This area is not about computers. This area is about how to teach if you use computers. Next, transition from training in technological aspects of work with computer to training in correct, substantial formation, selection, and personal use of informatization means. There are some purposes of this direction of teacher preparation. Acquaintance with positive and negative aspects of information technologies in education use. I have a little time to explain all of these details, and I think if you see this point, you understand what is the content of this education. Next, formation of idea of a role and a place of informatization of education in information society, specific structure and areas of effective application of means of informatization of education, technologies of information processing, representation, storage, and transfer. acquaintance with the general methods of informatization, how to teach, adequate to requirement of educational institutions activities. First of all, we have to understand what is requirement of this use of information technology. I will continue. Next, knowledge formation about requirements to means of informatization of education about the basic principles of an assessment of their quality. Teachers training in practical use of informatization of education means, for example, modern means, granting additional opportunity to explain to trainees a role and the place of information technologies in modern society, as I say before. Training in being informed, it's very important, language of informatization of education with a parallel terminology systematization. We do so. What is the difference if we compare this approach with other? First of all, at the heart of training is not a list of technologies, but requirements and features of informatization of education activity. Next, identification of aspects of informatization of education in variant trainees concerning features, educational institutions, information technologies, and some other factors. Identification of the variable aspects depending on psychological, methodical, technology, and organizational factors. Next, transition from nuances of IE description to focusing on teachers' attention on key problem of informatization efficiency. Terminology systematization within training in informatization of education language. And next, teachers' motivation development to taking part in information educational environment construction. And finally, I want to say that very important to explain to teachers that information technology use will be justified only if such use meets of an educational system requirement. And we have to understand what is requirement. And next, application of informatization means in training by the principle, the more the better, can lead to increase of educational system effectiveness. Thank you so much, and excuse me my English. Thank you for your attention.
We will now move to the last presentation from Dr. Christian Alexander, and then we'll open it up to questions.
Thank you. First off, I want to thank Dr. Muhammad Al-Ali for organizing this conference, along with the conference team. Very important not to forget that there are players in the background who helped set this up. So my thanks goes out to them. Second of all, I want to point out that I'm not an educational specialist, so I'll be talking here based on my experience on reflections of having gone through the German educational system and having taught in the UAE for about 10 years at a national university. Now my kind of title for this presentation is A Glimpse at the Educational Systems and Policies of Germany and the United Arab Emirates, Similarities and Differences. And in my remarks, I would like to focus on the educational system in Germany as a case study, and then compare it to the UAE. Of course, any full-fledged comparison is problematic, given the difference in size of countries, its different political systems, historical backgrounds, and societal makeup. I will sketch out the two educational systems and then briefly discuss some of their respective challenges and offer up a few thoughts on the basic similarities and differences. Let me please allow me to start with the German case. So Germany is highly ranked and renowned for its academic reputation. It's well known for its scientific accomplishments and technological innovation. And obviously the German government seeks not only to provide individuals with general education and language skills, but to equip them with individual autonomy and maturity to guarantee them social and political participation in various spheres of life. Of course, education, like in most other countries, is the most important prerequisite for social mobility and equality in a knowledge society. Now, the Federal Ministry of Education in Berlin plays a role in financing and financial aid and the regulation, but most aspects of education are subject to the authority of the 16 German states, or as they're called, Bundesländer. So it's really at the behest of the Bundesländer to make the major decisions in terms of education, be it at the high school level or school level, as well as at the university level. The overarching authorities responsible for education are the respective ministries of education and cultural affairs. In German, Kultusministerien. They coordinate their policies with the help of the Conference of Ministers of Education. The number of schools in Germany has reached, according to 2020 statistics, more than 52,400 schools, where more than 12.2 million students learn and more than 772,600 teachers are working, just to give you an idea of the magnitude of things. So schooling is mandatory and compulsory and free and financed from taxes in Germany. German states are the main source of funding for German educational institutions, as I just mentioned earlier, but there is some coordination between the federal government and the respective Bundesländer. All Germans are obliged to attend primary and secondary education until they reach the 18th year of their life, and of course it depends on the academic performance during the primary school, after which teachers and parents together make a decision on which track students or pupils should take respectively after they've gone through the primary school. And then the options there are what is called Hauptschule, Realschule, Gymnasium, and in some instances there's a combination of Realschule and Gymnasium, which is termed the Gesamtschule. So in any case, I mean, basically there's a kind of a difference in how to accommodate certain levels of students. I mean, the Realschule is meant for underachievers, you could say, and they're also meant towards, training students or pupils to transition into a vocational training program, possibly. And then, of course, the Gymnasium is for higher achievers, and the ultimate goal there is to complete your high school education with the Abitur, or which is, kind of the ultimate qualification that you get from graduating with a high school degree, if you want to call it that, and that entitles you to attend university. So there are different vocational training programs, and I think that's one of the things that Germany is kind of known for, where you attend certain schooling and then also work at a kind of a company, and you're being paid, and that is basically like a training program of sorts. There are some private schools in Germany that are operated by mainly churches, but also there is a second type of track known as the Waldorf schools that are based on a pedagogy of the Austrian philosopher Rudolf Steiner. There are various kind of accreditation agencies or supervisory agencies in Germany that keep track of educational progress, and the one that comes to mind is the German Accreditation Council that was basically is the joint institution of all the different states that ensures quality assurance. But international assessment tests like the trends in international mathematics and science study, the program for international student assessment, PISA as it's commonly known, and the progress in international reading literacy study keep track of the performance of German students. And actually the PISA report that came out in 2000 actually gave a very bad review of German educational attainment, if you so want, and certain reforms kicked in thereafter, and Germany has been able to kind of improve on its education since that kind of report came out. Now, a lot of the supervisory reforms that did happen play into several structural components. At the school level, for example, there is the so-called school supervisory authority, then there is the external school inspection, the internal self-evaluation, assessment tests for system monitoring combined with the regular reports, and teacher professionalization. So all of these are kind of reform attempts that have factored into the new system that has some sort of self-evaluation component built into reforming some of the schools in Germany. Now, Germany has its share of public and private universities, all similar in academic quality. There are more than 380 officially recognized universities across Germany that offer more than 17,000 study programs of fields and subjects. There are three types of higher education institutions for students in Germany. So for one, there are the regular universities. Then there are universities of applied sciences, or as they're called in German, Fachhochschulen. And then there are colleges of arts and music. Of course, a lot of these universities have connections with research institutions and with companies, and they work together very closely on application-oriented research. So there is that synergy that's going on between specifically Fachhochschulen and various German companies in that sense. And there are more than 32,000 international researchers and scholars conducting research in Germany, while also receiving funding such as grants from the German government or for certain institutions like the Bertelsmann Foundation and others that I won't mention here. Now, the one interesting thing to kind of highlight maybe is that German universities do not charge tuition fees, not just to Germans, but also to international students. This is something that kicked in 2014. Students must only pay a kind of a nominal administrative fee that's no higher than about 100 to 250 euros per semester. And that entitles you to take as many classes as you want, or as many classes as you can handle. So it's kind of somewhat different than the American system. Of course, there are challenges, as with all educational systems, and even though Germany took some steps to remedy the problems that it was facing prior to the PISA results in 2000, there are still ongoing challenges. So for one, obviously, a child's academic performance is very often tied to their parents' backgrounds, and here in particular, immigrants and refugees are disproportionately affected by structural inequality. So you see that, inequality in the education system in Germany is fairly well accounted for. And as I mentioned, children from immigrant families are often disadvantaged as they are, on average, from a lower socioeconomic status. They have lower participation rates in all stages of the educational system, and often or frequently attend education programs offering lower qualifications. Now, of course, there has been discussion and debate in the German Bundestag about addressing these issues. And another issue has to do with the qualification or the special skills that German teachers very frequently do not have in dealing with immigrants or school children from that background. So there is the kind of demand or this urge to somehow train German teachers more specifically towards non-native speakers and giving them support and kind of a way to help these non-traditional students. Qualification recognition is another thing. I mean, a lot of immigrants who come to Germany do have qualifications or some formal educational background, and obviously many of them have been previously employed, but again, the process of recognizing their degrees is also one of the aspects that has to be improved upon. There's been a focus as of recent, because that was a major issue not too long ago, on learners with disabilities, and Germany has committed itself to the inclusion of learners with disabilities, especially since it signed the United Nations Disability Equality Convention in 2007. And so here again, it is about kind of focusing on instruction of handicapped and non-disabled pupils that is meant to improve the educational status. One last challenge that Germany is facing is teacher shortages. I mean, these are felt across the educational system, but more so specifically in disadvantaged schools. This has to do with an aging teacher cohort, changes in the population, and declining attractiveness of the profession of being a teacher in Germany. Of course, the working conditions as well, long working hours and bigger class sizes, as well as maybe a relatively low pay in comparison to some of their peers across Europe is another determining factor. Now, of course, there is academic and university cooperation. I think one of the things that Germany has not been very successful in doing is kind of expanding its educational systems into the broader world. I mean, yes, there are German schools in most capital cities, but if you look at the higher education at universities, it's few and far between. You have the German University in Cairo, the German University of Technology in Oman, but that's pretty much it in terms of extent of German universities abroad. Whereas if you think of the UAE, you have a number of American, Australian universities that are present here, UK universities. So again, that's maybe one of the issues to take into account. Now, there is something called the DAAD, which is the Deutsche Akademische Austauschdienst, which is kind of an agency responsible for international academic cooperation. So a lot of German scholars, researchers, academics are part of that program. So they, for example, spent an academic year abroad teaching at a foreign university, and in exchange a foreign scholar will come to Germany and conduct research there, and be paid by this agency or through the German government. So there are about 350,000 foreign students in Germany just in the year 2020. So this again is an attestation of Germany being kind of a country that many foreign students tend to veer towards. Let me now turn to the UAE case. Of course, education has been a major priority for the UAE as well. Looking back in time, the UAE established the Ministry of Education in 1972. This was followed by the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research in 1993. And these are institutions that are responsible for the licensing of higher education institutions. Of course, the goal was to, improve literacy. If you think of what was the point of establishing educational ministries in schools, and the UAE offers free schooling. And of course, the ultimate goal would be to somehow improve the quality of education, to provide nationals with higher degrees so that they can enter the workforce and take part in a high-skilled service economy. Now, major investments in research and science have occurred by the creation of various national federal universities with various BA, MA, and PhD programs. If you think of Zayed University, UAEU, HCT, most of them are based on a US curriculum and offer degree programs, and all of them are free to nationals that are eligible for them. Now, given the UAE's federal system, higher education is decentralized with different policies in place across different emirates. Each emirate sets its own policies governing private universities. One can obviously ascertain more information of the UAE's goals in terms of education when you look at the kind of Education 2020 document that was published and that entails roles by ADEC. the Department of Education and Knowledge in KHDA, the Knowledge and Human Development Authorities, again, very relevant and important agencies in terms of the UAE educational sector. In 1999, the Commission for Academic Accreditation was established, and this particular agency in the UAE accredits all degree programs for private universities operating outside of the free trade zones to ensure that these programs meet international standards of accreditation. So quality assurance is a very big issue for the UAE authorities, and the process is kind of being done by establishing certain standards, benchmarks, KPIs, and accreditation, and that's been ongoing over the last few years. Now, the federal budget regarding education has increased significantly over the years, which has to do obviously with the higher incoming number of students, particularly at the university level. Not just women, but also now increasingly men kind of wanting to obtain an undergraduate degree. Another feature of the UAE system is the privatization and internationalization of education, with a push to establish branch campuses of various prestigious Western universities such as NYUAD, University of Wollongong, Dubai, Sorbonne, and the creation of the so-called Dubai Knowledge Village or Dubai International Academic City. So in essence, the UAE has become kind of a transnational education hub. And of course, part of that logic would be to have private universities in order to attract foreign students, which is obviously an income, but also talent that will then ultimately possibly enter the UAE job market and kind of retain that talent. Of course, the role of political leadership in the UAE in terms of education is pivotal because, again, it is with the blessing and with the push by various leaders that encourage women to obtain an education and encourage them to become active participants in the job market, be it in the private and public sector. All of that would have not been possible without the guidance and the kind of top-down process of kind of ensuring this possibility. Now, of course, even in the UAE, there are some challenges when you think of education. Of course, there's been a heavy investment in education, both in terms of primary and secondary education, but there's still a difference in quality and learning methods when you think of different emirates. Here, what comes to mind is, public high schools relying on foreign expat teachers, focus on memorization, on English at the university level, whereby, again, some would argue that Arabic is being kind of pushed to the background. And of course, emphasis on Western-style curriculum tends to sometimes neglect Arabic, as so many students have become less proficient. And it is often a requirement, I recall in my days at Zayed University, by certain ministries who complained about not the quality necessarily of the students, but their proficiency in Arabic when they joined the ministry, that they weren't able to, let's say, write a memo in Arabic in a proficient manner. So that's something that has been taken on by various universities as of recent. Now, of course, there's been an expansion of educational facilities at the university level, but it's mainly women who are benefiting here. If you look of what's been going on over the last 20, 30 years, there's been a much higher participation rate of women at various institutions, and of course that's also increased their job prospects. Some would argue that boys have been left behind, as one study has indicated, but again, here you may say that maybe they're lacking a role model, that they have other early level job opportunities, be it through the military or the police. But all of it is a combination of different factors. But I think as of the last 3 to 4 years, we see that there are more and more Emirati men who are entering into the university system. Now, of course, one of the questions has to be, how do you accommodate the domestic labor market? And of course, students who go to university have to have some skills that resonate with the labor market. And of course, the labor market is segmented, and there's a preference for public sector employment because it's better paying and more lucrative. And of course, there's the phenomena of unemployment and underemployment after graduation. There are lots of programs that offer a number of different degree programs, but maybe in some instances lacking focus on sciences, math, engineering, and medical technical disciplines. So there's also been a push to kind of augment universities and include these different degree programs. And I think here's where private universities have stepped in and provided these various science-based specializations. But also the UAE government has provided various scholarships for Emiratis to go abroad and to get degrees in various foreign universities. And we've seen an influx of students in the last 10 to 12 years. I mean, when I came here, it was very few. Now we have many more Emiratis who have joined master's degree programs and PhD degree programs. I think that the last thing I want to touch on here in terms of the UAE before I close off with a brief discussion on similarities and differences has to do with it's hard to attract Emiratis as professors, teachers, and instructors. It's just not a lucrative or an interesting field, if you so want, specifically in higher education. There are very few Emiratis who are professors at institutions now at UAEU. There are some, HCT has some, but again, they are few and far between. And so again, attracting and retaining talent who and kind of making the profession of being a professor or as a teacher more interesting is something that is obviously at the forefront of educational specialists, and has been. Of course, some of it has to do with the function of wages and financial support for research in general, but those who do enter universities are very often tempted to take on jobs in ministries or are then promoted to certain bureaucratic functions, and so they give up their position as a teacher and professor.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alexander.
Just one more thing, just because I talked about the similarities and differences. I think 2 more minutes won't make a big deal, but okay. So again, both countries place a high value on education at all levels. Educational attainment is very important and sought after. Both Germany and the UAE have a school system in place that is compulsory and free to citizens. The German system is more fragmented in transitioning from one age bracket to another, and foreign nationals who reside in Germany would generally attend a German school, whereas in the UAE most foreign nationals would be seeking out private schools, of course, which all have different curricula and standards. If you think of the Indian school, British school, Filipino school, even German school, not to mention the cost of tuition. But as far as citizens are concerned, both countries abide by the maxim that education for many, not for the few, and we see that obviously education is an important factor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alexander. And thank you to all of our speakers today, Ms. Al-Sadi, Dr. Grishkin, and to Dr. Alexander as well. You've shared many different perspectives and given us a lot of food for thought. So I do have a couple of questions, but before I ask the questions, I'd like to open it up to our audience here, to all of you who have come to listen to the speakers today. Are there any questions that you have for any of our panelists today?
Hoping I'm not diverting the topic here or where you guys are speaking. Dr. Alexander mentioned something about curving up and upskilling the national Emirati students. My question is actually about abroad studies or student exchange systems. I'm just wondering if in the era we're living for now with the computerization of education as well as everything being available online and as well as we having a speaker from Moscow today that is as if he's present in the room today, is it still efficient, especially against the how costly financially it could be for student exchange systems that used to be vital and really profiting back in the days? With things changing and that being possible from the same room you are for now, I would like to hear what you think about how still efficient or profitable that could be, or if we can fund these kinds of costly checks, if I may call them, into applying better, education from where students are in the first place and refunding that.
Is this question addressed to me or just to all of us?
For both of our speakers, I would like to hear what you guys think about that.
In terms of exchange programs, I think Dr. Alexander will answer better because it's. I think you mentioned it that it's in Germany.
Exchange programs. Exchange programs in a traditional sense would be someone going abroad for a semester or two and then coming back and then completing your degree at your home university. Obviously that's an experience that is cherished by many. Yes, you're right that of course nowadays with remote learning and e-learning and Zoom, you can attend different lectures. You can get insight. You can get online lectures that are being provided by high-ranking professors in other universities. But I think it's the experience of living in a country, of being exposed to different cultures, as well as having the visceral experience of being on a campus somewhere else, being exposed to people and to the different formats of education. That is what gives the experience. And I think, again, an exchange program is a very short-term kind of endeavor. It's meant to be 1 or 2 semesters. If you're relating to going abroad for a master's or a PhD, that's a different story. But even nowadays, master's degrees in the UK or in Europe are maybe a year to a year and a half. So the costs are relatively affordable, I think, from what you get out of it. Because again, having a degree from a Western university, not just in the UAE, but abroad, and the experience of having been exposed to a university setting is what might give someone an advantage on the job market.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from the audience?
I have a statement actually, and just to comment on Dr. Alexander. From experience with the job market in the UAE in regards to jobs of UAE nationals specifically, the challenge that I saw in the education sector is if we look at the statistics from 2018, out of 18,000 teachers in the private sector only in Abu Dhabi were only 200 UAE nationals, and only out of those 200 were 2 males. So this is actually a challenge for us in the education sector to bring in teachers. And not only that, but if we really look into the degrees that are being given to, for example, not just the UAE nationals, but also for the expats, we have very limited degrees. For me to do a PhD in education, I had to literally travel abroad to the UK to obtain that degree that will, although I might not teach in it, or I might teach in it, but I know that it will enhance my education leadership. And I had to focus on educational leadership and work culture so it can align with basically my work. So similar to that, I believe that UAE nationals, to obtain these nationals into the education sector, it's because they are limited in degrees, simply because Zayed University, for example, has early childhood, Bachelor of Early Childhood, but then when we go and obtain the ADIC approvals, It's really difficult because he cannot teach or she cannot teach in the secondary or the higher grades. So they are literally limited to early childhood education. So they would need to go abroad again to get a master's degree in education. So in regards to even the scholarships has been recently stopped to the UK. However, if we look at the major curriculums in the UAE, it is a UK based. So we expect our staff to have that kind of degrees in place in hand. So we really need to look at the wider picture when we are looking for talented Emiratis to take over the education sector, even to give back to the country as a national, just to align with the national agenda as well.
Thank you so much, Ms. Al-Sadi, for adding additional context to what Mr. Al-Husseiner was saying. Are there any other questions? I think we still have, 5 minutes. Definitely time for one more question. If there's no questions from the audience, I'd like to ask a question to Dr. Gülşen, who's joining us online. Given the rapid technological advancements that we've had, and obviously still increasingly rapidly, how has that impacted the informatization of education and teacher training?
We realize some practical and practical study and lectures, and we speak about some new technologies and how to use these technologies, and how to measure quality of electronic resources, because it's very important, and how to teach if you use it. It's some complex which is very important for any teacher. And we organize some invariant part and variable part which belong to the several ways of teacher preparation. For example, teacher of biology, teacher of chemistry, and so on. There are several variable parts of the course. And our practical training is very variable, as I say. And we have very big experience in this area. I think it's interesting, but I have a little time to explain some details of this problem. Thank you so much for your interest for this area. I understand that my speech is not in the way of this section, but all of us speak about the professional development of teachers, and I speak too. It's very important.
I agree.
Thank you so much for the question.
Of course. Thank you very much. We do have time for another question. If there's none from the audience, I will step in.
I did attend, can I ask something?
Of course you can, Dr. Mastaki.
Sorry, I'm not feeling well, so I'm wearing this mask. Because I saw the word leadership, I mean, what do you think that is leadership important in the education sector, especially for looking at the future trends of technologies in the education sector? A very simple question.
I believe that leadership is really important. Honestly, when looking at our leadership as looking at 30 schools in the United Arab Emirates and having that government trust, which is again a leadership, to believe in us that we could manage these schools for them. Just as I said, to align with the government leadership at the moment is very crucial for the United Arab Emirates, specifically because I see it. We align with Ministry of Education, and then we align with ADIC, and then we align with the leadership, the Shuyukh, Allah yahfadhum, leadership, and we understand what they want. Currently, they want Emirati teachers in the private sector, which is happening. Because if we look at the private sector, like I said, just a couple of years ago, we had only 200 Emiratis. So because the leadership believed in the talent and believed that this Emirati will give back and will grow that child, who's again an Emirati, and for example, let's say in a charter school, they believe that they are the ones who will sustain that national identity. And definitely, the leadership matters, 100%.
Thank you so much. Ms. Al-Sadi. I think that's a great way to finish this panel. Thank you so much to everyone. Thank you to Trends. Thank you to our speakers, the audience, and thank you to those of you that have tuned in online.
Thank you so much.
All right, so thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all. We'll have a 15-minute coffee break, and then we'll resume with our second panel of the day. Thank you. Welcome again, everyone. So the second part of the conference today is going to be a roundtable discussion titled Empowering the 21st Century Education with Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning. Innovative solutions and opportunities for advancements, which will be moderated by Mozel Marzougi, researcher at Trends Research and Advisory. And the panelists will have a total of 50 minutes to present, and then an open discussion of 15 minutes. May the moderator and panelists please proceed.
Thank you, Sultan. I would like to welcome everyone to our roundtable discussion of leaders in education. The integration of AI and machine learning in education has the potential to transform the way students learn and provide them with the skills they need to succeed in the rapidly evolving technological landscape. By empowering 21st century education with AI and machine learning, we are preparing the next generation for a future that is certain to be shaped by these technologies. I would like to represent our speakers in this panel. We have here with us today His Excellency Dr. Isa Al-Bastaki, President of University of Dubai. We also have Professor Sir John O'Reilly, President of Khalifa University of Science and Technology. We have Dr. Hamad Udabi, Vice Chancellor of Abu Dhabi University. And lastly, we have Dr. Nancy Gleason, Associate Professor of Practice of Political Science, Director of Hillary Balance Center for Teaching and Learning in New York University, Abu Dhabi. We're going to start ahead with His Excellency Dr. Isa Al-Bastaki. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Moza, very much.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, but maybe some places around the world, good morning, maybe good evening. Thank you for inviting me. I thought it was conference room, but I realized most of it is online. I prepared a presentation just for you to understand what I mean, and I'm going to give you some of those points that we need to discuss also, the technology, the trends in the future, the fourth industrial revolution, and so on. So before I start, I like always to sorry, it's going on. I gave up everything, okay. Actually, it's very important to look at human capital before we talk about anything called education in general. And of course, why is happening? Okay. Capacity building is very important. This is where we look at human capital development requirement. And the leadership of UAE has talked about it. And if you look at our country gives priority to building human beings. That's the main thing. And caring for citizens everywhere in the country and the citizen in the real wealth of this country. So at the end, the focus is always the citizen, the human capital, the human being. And then building man is the next phase as a national necessity. Again, we talk on building man. Man, of course, here it's generic. It means man and woman, but it's talking generally speaking. And also, real wealth is the wealth of men, not money and oil, because men who are the ones who create the money, who build. So if you talk about industry, you talk about always people that are building the industry. And this, may his soul rest in peace. He said it at the beginning, he said, for me, it's the human being that I care about. Whatever we do is at the end, we serve the human being. And we go again, we see that we are thinking about how to face the future when oil is depleted by diversifying source of income. So we need to look at the future for the human being at the end. And again, the freedom of the United Arab Emirates has relied and will continue to rely on true wealth, which is the people, and not the other than the people. Again, science and technology and education is very important for the future of humankind. And of course, may rest in peace, Sheikh Khalifa. And then, again, if you look at, if you actually invest, of course, people use everything, it's generic education, whatever. Invest today correctly, then after 50 years, we'll be celebrating when we export the last barrel of oil. What does that mean? This is a vision towards the future, and actually, it shows also the actions of what we can do for the future. We start from today to make sure that we are sustainable even after 50 years. And no place for those who lack science and knowledge. His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, the President of UAE. And again, if you look at other things, there is no substitute for number one. We are looking to be number one. Most of the indices of the world, we have become number one, especially in technology. Other than that, we're still working on it. Even innovation in education, we are number 2, number 3, number 4 in the world. And then impossible is not in our dictionary. Because we are positive always, we look at everything positive, we can't say anything negative, we can't say anything impossible. And it's true. And he said, he was talking to young leaders, I want you young leaders to be lions and to lead lions, not sheep. That means you have to make sure that you are a lion and those who are following you are also lions. Don't demean them, don't suppress them, you will not be successful. And this is exactly what the philosophy of the leaders of the country. His Highness Mohammed bin Rashid, Vice President and Prime Minister. Well, to achieve a long-term sustainable, prosperous and productive lifestyle after oil for next generations this is what we are looking at, right? We want to make sure that next generations will live the same style of happiness and so on. But there are requirements. And the requirements are quality of education, then research and business development. We look at the business on the line. People talk about R&D. In our part of the world, R&D means you publish a paper, or you do what? Or you become promoted to associate professor, full professor. That's not enough. You need to make a business sense out of it. And of course, innovation, incubation, entrepreneurship. And last but not the least, the main thing is the robust, high-speed telecommunication, which is also sustainable, it's reliable, and it's also secure. Of course, what's the goal? The goal behind it is made in UAE, sold globally. These are the requirements for made in UAE, sold globally. Now, if you look at the foundation of Industrial Revolution 4.0 is STEM, it went to STEAM, and it went to STREAM. So STREAM is science, technology, research, engineering, art, and mathematics, right? So what is the fourth industrial, elements of the fourth industrial revolution? You look at it, it's moving, but you can't see it.
I think you need to point here.
No, it's moving, but you can't see it. Anyway, I'll tell you about the elements. It's about blockchain, it's about augmented reality, virtual reality, metaverse, it's about Internet of Things, IP version 6, it's about big data, it's about nanotechnology, it's about technology, it's about cloud computing. And at the end, they all go into the one technology, the 5G. 5G, and then you go into artificial intelligence, and then you go over, which is cybersecurity. In the future, everything will be wireless, so cybersecurity will be the priority of any technology. That's why 5G, it didn't go well until it solved the problem for IoT even, and Internet of Things. See, now you can see some of the words. Oh my God, I'll suffer in this one then. And of course, green economy, to make sure that everything is sustainable in terms of society, environment, and economy. Oh my God, I can't see anything. These are the foundations or the basis of education, which it goes from academic education, research and business development. You have community service, then you go into private collaboration, cooperation with the industry, cooperation with the government, and lifelong learning, and the last but not the least is innovation. These should be a part of the foundation of any university. I'm talking about education. Of course, without them, at the end it goes into advanced technology. What are the outputs? These are moving by itself. So the output is what? The output is academic degree, professional certificate, startups from the university, the graduates of universities, startups, lifelong learning, and soft skills. If you take care of these all, we are going towards the right direction in education. Now, education towards disruptive innovation, technology as an innovation tool. It says introduce techno-edutainment for the students to love to learn. And then learn anywhere, anytime, and by any means. Virtual reality as a face-to-face learning using cloud computing or IoT, and of course, metaverse is one of them. And then you go into adaptive curricula. Market job will changing faster in the future than now. So we need to have adaptive curriculum. This is where it comes from, and rise and fall of specific jobs. Then you go into innovative faculty, no rote learning anymore. That's killing the education if you go into rote learning, but you need to think out of the box, the student think out of the box, and delivering creative curricula. Fourth one, research-oriented learning, broaden scope of mind, and then team and collaborative work, two brains are better than one, and of course, innovative and creative thinking, inquisitive minds, entrepreneurship. Last but not the least is, love to learn, L2L I call it, love to learn. So once you make sure the student loves to learn, the student will learn. You use the technology, their language for them to learn. And of course, smart institutions define institutions that deliver digital ubiquitous education services to any student, from any structure, to anywhere, at any time, and of course, by any means. At the end, it has to have efficiently using digital pedagogical tools based on robust, super speed, reliable, and secure IT infrastructure. These are the elements of the future smart education. It's not just remote education. It'll turn out that they'll be personalized learning. Now, if you look at universities, then use these kind of tools, IoT devices, wearables and unwearables, they use them in many labs actually. And then if you go into augmented reality, virtually entering the world of reality, because augmented reality is in your universe. Virtual reality is the parallel universe of virtual. And then you go to virtual reality, which is metaverse, mimicking physical attendance. Blockchain, make payment transactions safe and easy. Robotics, accuracy and precision. Big data, analytics and knowledge. AI, learning, testing, delivering quality. And you have all heard of the new trend of learning. Then you have the nanotechnology, the biotechnology, MEMS and NEMS and all these together. And 3D printing, prototyping made easy. And last but not the least, cloud computing. So the future 10 jobs, one of them is body part maker. So there will be those people who are working just to make body parts in the future, athletes and so on. And then number 2 is something you can't see. Then we have the genetically modified farmers that are working on these things. Their job is to modify them genetically and produce better crops and livestock. Memory augmentation, surgeons could boost patients' memory when it hits. Of course, we have also space tourism. So you'll have people working as space tourists, space architects. You can architect the space, build in the space. All these are new technologies, space pilots and tour guides and so on. And then climate change reversal. the people who are working on climate change reversal, so that to nullify the bad changes. Well, this one is very bad. We will have in the future, everything should be green, in a sense of green tech, green law, green medicine, green blockchain, green finance, green business, green entrepreneurship. Everything is green, and these are the, but you can't see them. So let's go to the next one. I have a beautiful presentation. It does look beautiful. So many? Sorry.
There you go.
Okay. Now, the sort of education. Finished already. This is very important. Not this one. Now look. Oh, I'm using the wrong button. Okay. Now. Again, going backwards, happening. Anyway, what we are looking at, the goals are the following. The goals are following. One of the things is, since the goals are to have, as any degree, what do you need to finish? Course learning outcomes and program learning outcomes. Once you finish this course learning outcomes and program learning outcomes, you get the degree. You pass them, right? So it doesn't matter how you do it. And since you have learn from anywhere at any time, you have more time to learn, an easy way to learn. That means you can finish degrees less than 1 year or even less than that. Even high school could be done 9 would be the maximum. Less is, you're not mature enough. So 9 plus 1, 10 years you will finish your degree, and you are ready to improve your soft skills to go to the job market. So this is disruption. Not be any more 4 years degree, 5 years degree, it's not. It's you choose what you want. And at the end, this is what the disruption will be about. Also, if you took up, let me say something, University of Dubai. Now, University of Dubai, we have 3 colleges and so on. That's not so important. Main thing is, we are the first or the second in the world to have net zero energy campus. 100% of our energy comes from solar panels, 100%. And we have dry cleaning, robotics, because you don't use water. Robots clean it. And we don't have batteries. We feed it to the grid at the daytime and get it back at night. At the end, it's all a net zero energy campus. Plus, it's net zero water campus. Water is also recycled. We use the mist and all these to recycle the water. We do irrigation, we use for cooling system, we use for the fountains, everything is recycled. And even smartly used water taps, because they don't just open and close, they open as much as you want. All this together, we have LEED also net zero water campus. And this is something, why I'm saying so, because I want to advocate. People think that's very expensive. It's expensive, the initial cost, capital cost, but the return is 5 years. After 5 years, it will be zero cost, zero carbon footprint, and it stays for 25 years. So I would like to advocate this in all universities in the world, as you all can do it. This is my speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Now we will be moving to Professor Sir John O'Reilly. So the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. And let me say, quite a hard act to follow. You covered a lot of ground there. So I think I will be touching on some things, but hopefully in a slightly different perspective occasionally that may add some value. But given the title of the program, Drivers of Change and Innovation, or the subtitle, I want to make some observations specifically about each of those. I'll probably feature innovation, but change too. And I'll give you first a bit of context, and excuse me that it's personal, because that's what I will speak from, my personal experience. I won't give you a whole CV, but just probably the most significant thing for this event. One of the roles that I held in the UK was as Director General of Knowledge and Innovation. It's a lovely title, I mean, to have responsibility of the whole of knowledge. I mean, what could be bad about that? What knowledge meant, of course, was teaching and research. But you notice that what is put together with that, education, research, and innovation. And I was very clear when I took on the role, and as I interacted with universities and with government and with industry, these three things are vitally important, not just separately, but together. Each reinforces the other. We're very familiar in universities of the importance of research. We laud the importance of research. We talk about being a research-intensive university. And that's valuable. But in my view, it's not enough. The innovation and enterprise dimension is critically important too. And it speaks to what you were saying earlier about taking it further forward, or how it gets taken up, and so on. So for me, when we look at higher education and the place it plays in a country, in society, and the world more generally, think in terms of a three-legged stool. Three-legged stool, they're very good. Take off one leg, they fall over, but three legs, they're very, very solid, very stable. Each of those legs, individually very important, and together, that makes the thing work. And in the same way, the education bit, the research bit, and the innovation and enterprise aspect mutually reinforce, work together, both within the institution and for its role in society. Now, why do I give so much emphasis to that? Because for me, that is now the essence of what a good university is really about. And it therefore must be culture, and it must be the experience of all in the university. I remember hearing a lecture from the President of the Royal Society as it came in. And there was a lot of talk in the universities, well, in the world, in the UK at the time, about whether all universities should be involved in research, or whether there should be teaching universities and research universities, T and L. And of course, being Britain, we thought we should compromise as well, so they had some X saying they might do a bit of both. So there were three letters that were in circulation, R, X, and T. And then Sir Michael Atiyah, a very eminent mathematician, President of the Royal Society, in giving his inaugural address said, they're the wrong letters. Speaking to the Fellows of the Royal Society, it's all about T and L. And the Fellows of the Royal Society shook. Whereas the research is going to say it's all about teaching and learning. And he said, a university is about T and L. From the earliest student, beginning freshman or whatever language you use, to the most senior professor, it's about T and L. It's about thinking and learning. And I rather like that. Thinking and learning. It's true. It's what we want the students to do, but it's what we all do as well. It's what research is about. It is indeed about what innovation and enterprise is about too. You know, we think things through, we learn, and then we have our impact. So I thought worth mentioning that. Now let's look at some leading universities. Look around the world for somewhere that you really, really respect. And there are many. Many people would put Stanford quite high on their list. If they went to the United States, you could mention others. If you looked in the UK, many would put probably Cambridge quite high on their list. You could look at others, and we could go on. But let's just take those two as an example. Strong in education? Oh yes. Research intensive? Oh yes, very successful. Where is the innovation and enterprise? All around them. Within the university, it's the culture, It's the culture that the students experience, that their graduates take with them. But I said all around them. Yes, it's right. Look at Stanford, the home of Silicon Valley. You could equally well actually have said Berkeley in its own way, but let's take that. What is that? What's the nature of Silicon Valley? It's technology companies, some of which have started in the university and spun out. Many more have gone there because it's a good place to be for what they do. Now, why is that? Well, of course, talent. The university is producing talent, that's not all staying there. Proximity to discovery, too. Being close to a powerhouse where that culture of education, research, and innovation and enterprise is integral to what it's about, integral to how the faculty are, how the graduates are, and of course the talent is then in Silicon Valley and you can move around. Now, if you looked back, I would say 20 to 25 years in Cambridge, you would have seen an excellent university that was more hundreds of years old than I like to think of, about 800 years old, with wonderful traditions, and it was undoubtedly a wonderful educational experience to go there. And the research was undoubtedly excellent. But it looks different today. It's more complete. And it's complete because what it's developed is that innovation and enterprise culture surrounded by now companies, a small town, really, relatively speaking, but companies, major world companies, choosing to go to Cambridge, AstraZeneca to make the centre of their research laboratories in Cambridge and so on. Proximity to discovery, the strong connectivity between the university and the enterprise agenda and so on. So that would be my context, and you'll have to stop me when it gets to the end of time, because I do tend to rabbit on, all right? But I wanted to emphasise that innovation and enterprise aspect is a vitally important culture for a university, and something that we're really keen to drive, I think, in the UAE, certainly my own institution, very much what we're into. So that's one change, isn't it? Mm-hmm. A change that we've seen, and we need to make sure that we embrace it. Then there's innovation. I don't know how you think about innovation, but I think of two facets to it. One is doing different things. We come up with an idea for a product and we bring it forward and we take it to the market and we refer to innovation. That's true. You know, I've done some research and so on. That's very, very important and we want that. But it's not just doing different things. It's also doing things differently. Yeah. The first isn't exclusively, but tends to be sort of product focused. And the second isn't exclusively, but tends to be more process focused. There's innovative projects, there's innovation in process, and both of them are critically important to success. So when I say we must embrace it, let's not overlook that facet. And now let's translate that to the educational environment. And you'll gather, for me, my experience is higher education. I'm sure that this applies much more generally, but I'll talk in that context. And I'm going to start with a quotation from a poem by T.S. Eliot, this poet, The Rock. I think he must have been having a bad time because some of the beginning lines are a little bit obscure, but there are two lines in it in particular that I want to bring out. The poem says, "Where is the wisdom we have lost in knowledge? Where is the knowledge we have lost in information?" That's thought-provoking, really. And actually today, in our context, we could add to it. Where is the information we have lost in data? And when we use the term big data, actually, that's part of what we're thinking about. We do all this work and we gather data for a particular purpose, And what we used to do, I can remember doing this in the telecommunications industry, we were talking earlier, we captured all this data, but we had nowhere to store it. Beyond a certain point, we threw it away and started again. We had no idea what we were disposing of when we did that. But today we can capture it and hold it. What does big data contain when you've done all that? And you could think of this in the context of industry, in the context of society, in the context of government, and certainly in the context of universities, both in their research and in all the other things they do. Data sets contain, this is my version of it, the results of experiments that we didn't think to do or didn't realize we were doing. Because things have been going on, data has been collected, and then when we mine that data, we can find other things out. Look at how we do that with medicine all the time now. That's why we created Biobank when I was in the research councils in the UK. That's why we do longitudinal studies. We don't always say, here's my hypothesis, now I'm going to prove it. In these, we gather data and then we do analysis of that data and we find out things. It's a different sort of discovery process. It's innovation, isn't it? And isn't it valuable? So where does that take us to in education? And I could go on forever. So I'm going to stop in a minute, I promise. Right?
Thank you, Professor.
But just think of this. And what you were referring to earlier, the different learning experience enabled by technology, all of those things that were in here that I was supposed to talk about. You know, all the AI and the big data and the blockchain, if you like, and the virtual reality and all of that. Yeah, all of that is technology that we can make use of. And we can make use of it not only in education to change the content of what we teach, but change the way in which students learn. Notice I swapped from teaching to learning. Universities used to be all about, here's the content and I'll pour it out my great wisdom and please mop it up and learn it. And you referred to rote learning, and wasn't there far too much of that? Okay? Today, the emphasis is much more of the students learning to learn, learning. Our role is to enable that learning process, is to make that as efficient as it can possibly be. And to cut it short, that's what this new technology can do for us. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Professor. And we will be moving now to Dr. Hamad. You can go ahead. You're welcome.
I'm enjoying listening to Professor John and Dr. Isa. I think if we want to look at the future of education, maybe we need to go a little back up front and go to the industry, go to the work environment. Try to imagine in the future how the work environment will be. An employee working in a bank, working in a company or somewhere, what sort of activities he would be engaged in? What sort of skills he or she needs to have? Clearly, AI is going to dominate many things, and reliance on AI will be there. So you'll find there are tools that the employee can use to multitask and perform things not in his or her specialty as well because of AI. We've seen chatbot and he maybe experienced that. Services, AI will be behind it, guiding it, improving it, providing data, and alerting decision maker to make sure things are going. Staff development, I think AI will be behind it. Through watching their performance at the workplace, providing, again, data, guidance, support. Sorry, I need to switch this one. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that. Sorry for that. So AI will be everywhere in the industry. And not only AI, will be so many other technologies, Dr. Isa mentioned, and the reliance on quantum computing, I think, will be there because this heavy data and lots of processing need to be in place. If you go back now to the university, what need to be in the university to enable people to be able to really to make use of this new environment, which is going to be. I think AI need to be in the curriculum, not as a degree. Now, we always, the way we respond to challenges come with a degree and say this is AI degree and do it. I think every employee has to know how to better use AI. Chatbot again is example. If you don't know how properly use chatbot, you will waste your time. If you just say write an article to me, or write a general article to you with nothing. But if you spend time coming with a story that you want to tell, put some bullet points, put some thinking behind it, and decide what are the outcomes need to be there, and structure it in a way, and then put it to chatbot, you will get a better result than just using it like that. If you want to use it, or AI, to create a software application, it can write in any language, programming language. Again, if you don't understand the requirement, you don't state it properly, you don't think of all the different aspects, you will get pieces of code here and there, you will not be able to make any use of it. So AI and how to use AI should be, I think, in every degree, not in a software engineering or IT aspect in that regards. The teaching and learning, I think less will be teaching, fully agree. Students now, they can learn the technical things on their own. Technical is easy to learn. If you really want to learn anything technical, there are so many tools around, and that can help you. And ChatGPT itself can help you. Say, act as a faculty of software engineering, teaching Python programming. ChatGPT will start saying to you, the curriculum of this course will be this and that, this is the learning outcome, this is the topic we need to do. Then you ask another question, okay, explain to me how to do, read an Excel file from somewhere and do some manipulation. We'll give you the explanation, we'll give you the code as well. It can help you testing your knowledge. Give me some questions. It will give you some open-ended question. You give your answers. It will grade it until you cover this one, you didn't cover that one. And there are so many tools, you know, Khan Academy or Coursera, everywhere. People who want to learn, they will learn anything, in my opinion. The faculty will be more, we keep saying it for a long time, yeah, as a facilitator. But we were not able to achieve it in most universities, I have to say. Since this e-learning started, everybody, faculty has to move from the knowledge source into the guidance and support, but we're not able to do it. But I think now it's time for it. If you are in a classroom, you can generate endless curriculum. You don't need to come with a curriculum. You can create a study plan using AI. You can generate curriculum while you are in the class. You can give the student to give them activities. You can come with personalized learning, adaptive learning, and all those things. A student is fast learner, finishing things quickly. You can generate for him or for endless of activities inside the classroom just by typing few statements. So you need to be able to facilitate that learning inside the classroom. I think services provided to the student. We give them transportation, we give them visa processing for international students, we provide them with many services at the moment. And there are lots of digital systems where we go and log in and do things like that. That also can be AI automated. I can see in the future, I think the chatbot type of communication will replace the traditional apps that we're using today, because it's more human nature, like you want to talk to someone. I think it gets better in place. Accreditation, program learning outcome, and course learning outcome. Those things can be also, in a way or other, digitized or automated. We are worried about students using ChatGPT or AI to do their assignment, which a genuine, what is I think we have to. But I think soon will come some technology that student has to have on their laptop and on their phone. It will keep watching every activity they do. When they do the assignment, it watch every activity that he or she does and give the teacher's report. The student really did it while that system did. If the system is down, that assignment will not be accepted, maybe cannot be submitted. And that tutor or AI tutor, we can call it, can help the student and guide student and can collect all these learning attainment data, which we do it on so many different ways. Sometimes we do it on assessment, but actually it's happening really in the learning, not in the assessment the student does. So this environment will be there. Now I think the university will move more from being a teaching, although the teaching and research different, into I think more general education. It will be a place where you bring people together. You bring students to interact with each other. You focus on innovation and soft skills. And the general education curriculum may become more important in the future than the technical curriculum, it's engineering and other. But again, this will bring challenges to us in the university. Do we need the same number of faculty we need? If there, what other roles they will have? I think research will be where they will focus, bringing research, innovation, and bringing solutions. We will have, I think, challenges maybe will come if we don't do proper social activities. We'll have a disconnected society where people work on their own individuals and lots of social challenges will be in place. So university will be a place, in my opinion, for innovation, for creativity, for research, for bringing people together more than becoming a place for teaching.
Thank you, Dr. Hamad. We'll be moving now to Dr. Nancy. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Is this working?
Yeah, it's working.
All right, good, you can hear me. Thank you so much. I love learning, so I've already learned a lot of things. I also was going to talk a bit about ChatGPT and GPT-3, but I'm just curious how many of you have heard of it here in the audience in the room?
We all got, yeah.
Okay, almost everyone. I agree with some of the trends we're talking about and fourth industrial revolution being crucial. My background is in where these things meet, right? Where the
politics.
I'm a recovering political scientist. But where the workforce transformation and the education meet. And I think ChatGPT is just one thing that came out November 30th. It's in this huge landscape of generative AI. Students don't need to produce the things we're asking them to produce anymore. ChatGPT just fits in two of those little boxes. This is the playground, which is a slightly different version of ChatGPT, which is called GPT-3. And this is just create a PowerPoint deck about an academic development workshop introducing faculty to GPT-3. And it gives me the outline, and then I put it back in and have it give me content for each slide. So this is how it works. Next slide. ChatGPT is slightly different, a little bit more sophisticated. So for example, it can write in Arabic and GPT-3 can't. But they're both based on the same back end in some ways. And it's iterative. You can go back and forth with it and have it refine what it's doing with you. So you're in conversation with the large language model. It's not connected to the internet. There's other language models that do very specific things, but these things are completed projects. And one of the things they're doing is managing big data for us because we produce so much that we can't manage it ourselves. So, and this is an infant, right? We don't know what it's going to be able to do when it's 6 feet tall. So these are just things from Sam Altman, who's the CEO, explaining to the public what they're doing, right? So they're releasing it to us iteratively and socializing us to it. so that we will want to buy it, right? And so we don't freak out that this is AI, real AI, like singularity, artificial intelligence. We're not there yet. And now Microsoft is in on this, so you will Bing it, you won't Google it, right? It's highly likely that Google will go away. Right now it has 4.6 billion users. We won't have Gmail, we'll have Bing Mail. And ChatGPT will be inside Microsoft Word. And universities will struggle to pay for Microsoft Word. That's sort of whatever, where we're at since November 30th. But there's been essays like the magazine articles that said the essay is dead. The essay is not dead, but how we write is fundamentally disrupted. Same, it automates code, but we still need to know logic so that we can understand what code is. I don't know how to code, but I know what logic is. So I know when I have a bad algorithm that I'm working with. Well, you have to have that, it's a gimmicky phrase, but you have your robot quotient now. Or Accenture calls it your technology quotient. So you have your IQ and your EQ, and now you have your TQ. The point for universities and for education is that now it's all about process. Completed products are done with AI from here on out. So do we need to know what's human generated and what's not? We're going to have to work this out. We're going to have to hire more philosophers. I don't know. But you're not going to do anything in the workplace that's not done with AI. Right? Since November 30th, it's estimated 30% of people use it use ChatGPT on a day-to-day basis to do their work. So I do. I use it to write the tweets for the center I run. Then I don't have to count 250 characters. So process becomes everything. That means we should have been teaching process, but our teachers are teaching a 4-4 with 35 students in the classroom and teaching summer school and doing research and doing service. Don't have time to teach process because I'm grading multiple choice exams because I have too much. So that's disrupting the model. And banning it isn't going to work. We have a couple of countries who are trying to ban it. For example, it's banned in China right now. Everybody just put it into WeChat. You don't need, it's on their mobile phones instead of their laptops, that's all. You can't really ban it. And of course, our academic integrity issues are disrupted. It's not plagiarism. It is original work. It's not catchable by Turnitin. But it's not their ideas. So we have to teach them how to write the prompts, to speak to the AI. And the better you are at writing the prompts, the better you get out of it. There's no one in the universities to teach them how to write the prompts. We don't know how to do it yet. We will. I think that our librarians are going to be our saviors. But if we can go to the next slide. So we changed to teaching process. We don't grade completed papers. We grade the process the student pursues to do the paper. And this kind of work can't be done without structural changes in the institutions. We can't say teachers have to solve this problem. It has to come with leadership alignment in how we run schools, and it has to come with the accreditation boards allowing leadership to make the changes they need to make. So much more flexible accreditation standards. The 2019 CAA standards are phenomenal. Not necessarily ready for this disruption, right? I don't think any accreditation standard is ready for this, any country's ready. So how do we verify knowledge as universities? If you do nothing, then your degree will be worth nothing. Because students aren't doing the work that you're verifying they could do. The grade means nothing. So the CLOs and the assessments have to change. Now, that means the curriculum committees are overwhelmed, the substantive change applications go through the roof. We're not built for this kind of disruption. And faculty may not even know how to change the assessments. We have to use technology to do those things. And we have to break down completed projects, completed processes that we were grading into something else. So we advance to the next slide. We use very sophisticated rubrics to break these down. So don't grade a paper to decide whether or not someone can write. Grade if they can tell you orally or in some other way the purpose of why they're writing their paper, the reasons for their audience, why the sources of evidence matter, not what they picked, but why it matters. Because GPT-3 can give you your sources. I had a student write a paper last semester, bypassed the library completely to identify his resources. Never went to the library website or anything. Got excellent, it was an excellent paper. He was just playing with it to see what he could do. And that was before ChatGPT came in. That was with GPT-3. Next slide, please. So these are the big things I think we're going to be seeing in the next 5 to 10 years. You'll have workload calculations changing. So the 140 credit hours and the Carnegie unit that we use in most countries outside of Europe goes away. And the workload is calculated by discipline, not by undergraduate versus graduate, whatever. So what replaces it, I don't know, but I presume my degree is in international relations. You don't need 4 years to do an international relations degree anymore. Maybe that can be done because you'll never write a memo by yourself anyway. So why do you need 14 weeks, 28 meetings of an hour and 15 minutes to learn how to write a memo? Timetabling then needs to adjust. We need way more time for assessment and a lot less time for distributing information. I'm requesting 3 days with my 16 students so I can deliver the oral exams I want to deliver one-on-one, right? So we're not set up for that. We have exam timetables, right? 3 hours, bang, 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 suffer, make them suffer as much as we can. And then the bureaucracy of higher education will shift. Employees have to know how to use this or they need to move to another industry. And we still need these people because we've never had enough administrators anyway, but they have to do entirely different tasks. And they probably haven't been trained for that. Digital acumen, yes, but really another level because you have to understand the data as an employee. And I think our ethics around academic integrity are going to be fundamentally disrupted because ideas generated with AI will be better ideas. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nancy. We will be moving now to our open discussion, so I'll open the floor for the audience. If anyone has any questions, please go ahead. Any questions? Okay.
I have a question myself. Dr. Isa, you mentioned the initiative of going green and sustainable in universities. I was wondering, since COP28 is here and this message is really important, what are the next steps to preach this message to all universities and different institutes as well? How can we move toward learning the cost of sustainable as the first time cost payment, and then it's going to help all the rest? So how can we preach that message with you?
It's a very difficult question. You see, I was there in COP27, and I already advocated the idea of green, to be green and to be lead net zero energy building and so on. And my main always selling point is it's the ROI is so good that after 5 years you're not going to pay anything. Completely zero cost, maybe some cost of metering. If it was there, could be nothing. And then you're actually saving the world in terms of environment. So yes, and I'm going to also be part of 28. I'm not yet working on something. One of them I'm working on hackathon, green tech hackathon. We are doing that already. And we are also going to present our case in better way of what does it mean. I think sometimes, I have ideas that people say they're crazy, and they don't allow me to say it because I'm the chairman of WGEO, World Green Economy Organization, in the platform of academia and youth. And I say we are being fooled by climate change. In a sense, it's not wrong, it's correct, but there's also climate shift. Climate shift is another idea of North Pole, the magnetic North Pole and the geographic North Pole, changing of that. So climate shift, but still the coldness is there, the heat is there. It's just moved somewhere else. But there's a part of it. We are actually misbehaving in terms of the environment,
But also we have to look at climate shift. When they say 1 degree, 1.5 degree, it shouldn't be in 1 year, in 100 years. I think it's less because you have to put that into consideration. But at the end, we are misusing and abusing the environment. So I think it's very important to advocate the idea of, yes, you know, as I said, we are not using water for cleaning. We are not using batteries at night. All these together is saving the earth actually in the future, coming 100 or 200 years, 1,000 years. This, every person should say it. I'm telling to all of you, so you can be my ambassadors to the world, that it can be done, it's cost effective, and so on.
Definitely do. We'll definitely do that.
Okay. But we need something in education. Questions?
So any more questions?
You know one thing, okay. No, I just say, you see, if you looked at my, of course, it wasn't seen well, that I never talk about teaching. Everything there's learning. You don't see any teaching there. Except one slide, I put teaching. Because I have to put teachers in, which is the foundation of I put teaching instead of learning. Otherwise, all my slides, it's about learning. That's one. And secondly, Silicon Valley was successful because of Stanford and Berkeley. Not that Berkeley and Stanford, they went there because it was Silicon Valley. Yeah. There was no Silicon Valley. And many countries in the world tried to mimic and copy it, but they couldn't. There's the Silicon Forest in Oregon, it failed. Silicon Desert in Arizona, it failed. Dubai Silicon Valley, it failed. The Silicon Oasis, even though it's successful, but not in the main charter. The reason is the only place which is leaderless is Silicon Valley. The growth is completely organic. Everything required for you to build something is there. You look at legal firms, you look at banks, you look at investments, you look at venture capitalists, you look at universities, research, teaching, learning. Everything is a part of that whole ecosystem that will make everybody successful. That's why this is sustainable for a long time. There's no CEO. So if you want to create one, make sure there's no CEO.
Thank you very much to all of the panelists. I've learned a lot today, and this is honestly one of my favorite panels that I've attended, so thank you for all the knowledge that you bestowed upon me. However, I'm kind of having an existential crisis now. So as a recovering political scientist with degrees in international studies and public policy, I'm now getting worried about my skills becoming obsolete in the next few years, given everything that I've heard today. Of course, some of the stuff I knew, but not everything. What is your advice for somebody like me in my position, or I still consider myself young, youth in my position, who've studied these degrees and now are worried about our skills becoming obsolete in the next couple of years?
Shall I take a stab? So your skill is not international relations. The shelf life of the knowledge you learned is obsolete. And universities, that's for all of us. The shelf life of knowledge just went whoosh. So, but you know how to learn because you did those degrees, hopefully, presumably, right? And the thing we need to talk to students about is the skills you have. You know, I met this biology student, she has no jobs in biology, I can't get hired anywhere. I'm like, you're not a biologist. You're a problem solver. You know how to perform tasks from beginning to end. You're self-regulated because otherwise the would have failed. So it's not that you have to so emphasize competencies and skills, but what's durable about your education is the processes you learned, not the content you gained. I don't care what you major in, right? And we still have employers saying, oh, no, I only hire whatever. I only hire marketing graduates. And so then the school has to follow the economy and make a marketing degree. But there's just not gonna be careers that way in the next 5 to 10 years. We're not talking 30 years from now. This is an abrupt shift. Firms that only hire from one degree won't last. So you have skills, but you need to talk about them in a different way.
And also because we always talk about upskills and reskills, right? That's what she's talking about. So you always have a chance to do it. As an example, you know, cloud computing was there since 1990s, okay? But it didn't go through, it didn't become successful because the name was not a good name. They called it thin client. Once they changed the word into cloud, then everybody worked on it, it worked well. Same thing goes with virtual reality. I've been telling it still not mature, suddenly changed it to metaverse. Now everybody is working on it. But disruptions happen and it takes time to mature. So don't worry about yourself for the coming few years, that's one. Secondly, always there's a way of reskill because you have the foundations of the knowledge required to solve a problem, right? Even programming, you don't know coding. I know coding because I code, right? But even if you don't know coding, it's logic. So once it comes to logic, you can do it always. If and then. It's all if and then. If, then, if, then, if, then, and so on, right? So you shouldn't worry for the coming 5 years, you shouldn't worry about it. In 10 years, you will see those avatars everywhere. You'll see all these everywhere. It's true, but still, a driver, today will be a driver. Tomorrow will be teaching the car how to drive. So they change the skill of the driver to become the one who's teaching the robot whatever to drive. So always there's reskilling. And believe me, nobody will be out of job.
If I can add to that one, I think, in my opinion, two things that we as humans need to be successful in life. Thinking one is self-determination. You already have that one. Because if you have self-determination, you can learn everything and you can find futures for things. The second one is mastering process. I'm a process-oriented. And I believe everything in life is a process.
Control system? Control it?
Yeah. Including our life. Our body is running so many processes. Our thinking is a process. If you have the proper thinking process, you will find solution for many things. And also the learning itself is a process. That can change that process from time to time. But once you master a process very well, and if you master the learning process is the most effective one, then you can repeat it and solve so many problems. And most of our young generation, they don't have the patience to master the process. They want to learn it just like that. And sometimes it doesn't go like that. It needs time and iteration until you master that process.
I think, but that's a good thing that the children nowadays are not very patient. I tell you the reason. You have seen Jetsons cartoon?
Yeah.
You have seen that?
Yeah.
That's happening now, right?
Yeah.
So they want everything quickly.
Yeah.
They'll get
it's
it.
good they want everything quickly.
Yeah, they'll get it.
There are things doesn't happen quickly. It needs time to happen.
Thank you for this great presentation and knowledge. For myself, although I'm with technology, with new technology, with ChatGPT, and etc., but I think also there are basics, right? When we used to write on papers, when we used to read, this gives us a skill, right? To how to write, how to read, and this skills also advance your to be creative, you know, in your thinking and stuff. So now we have new technology and we have to adapt them, right? So if I'm adapting ChatGPT, for example, so I think the role of new technology with creativity will decrease the creativity to some extent. And I think also in the other part, how the professors and teacher will assess their student with these new technologies. So my question is, what the best strategy for teacher faculty to respond to these new technologies, and also for students to adapt this technology? They take it like 100% or not?
I'll try to answer the second half of your questions, because the first one is very difficult. I agree it may impact on our thinking. I think it will if we use it the wrong way. The second one, I think we need to change the way we do our assessment. The old way of giving student an assignment, he goes home and do it and come back and submit it and the faculty grade it is not going to be. I think we need more engaging process. We need student to present to the faculty a draft, to speak to the faculty, get feedback from them. We need maybe more in-class activities than outside activities. My thinking in the future, the AI will develop in a way that will help us with this. Interview should be in place as well. So how AI will develop, I think the tools are already there. AI can interview a student on video. The technology is there and can assist the student performance and give him on-spot feedback on confidence, on structures, on what to do. Technology is there. We need one creative company will come with that. So our assessment has to be more engaging, not do it and submit it that way. There are tools around. There is a detector. They have ChatGPT with the content that tell you if it's fake or real. It has its own weakness as well, because if you are really an excellent writer, it may tell you you are fake, although you are not fake, because it looks at the structure, the pattern, the way the thing is written. There are other tools also people developing now. Turnitin is working on something similar as well. But these tools at the end, and even when we had Turnitin, students were able to hire someone to do the work for them.
Yeah.
And they submit it to you, and that someone will put it in Turnitin, make sure it's clean, and when it gets to you as a faculty, you will find it perfect. Also, the faculty knows the student writing style, writing abilities. If someone brings you something really different level, and you know your student, you should question that one and ask him for explanation or interview him and things like that. So some techniques will be there. But the challenge, they will add more work on the faculty. And they will not have enough time to do the things he's supposed to be doing in terms of advancing research and innovation and things like that. He will be trying to find those solutions.
You know, the habit of AI is very, very deterministic. It's not random. So AI, you can always understand what it'll do next. So the Turnitin actually, they are working so that we can know that this has been plagiarized from the ChatGPT or not. It will do that for sure, because there's something, even though it changes the answers, but there is a trend. As long as it's not human being, not a cognitive intelligence, then it will always can discover that it's been taken from ChatGPT. And one of the things that people say AI, they talk about artificial intelligence. I don't believe in that. I call it augmented intelligence. It augments your brain to do something better and faster. There's not intelligence yet. Once it comes cognitively later. So since we think randomly, but the machine doesn't. So you can always find a way for Turnitin to check that it's being done. At the end, technology is coming. One day you'll not feel that you are in a virtual world, for sure. Even your avatar was somewhere. Your avatar is there, my avatar is there. We shake hands, we feel that shake. We feel it actually. I can smell you, you can smell. So it'll be so much into it that you'll not feel you're in virtual world. Believe me, that's also coming. So these are all coming at the end. It goes slowly. People thought, who would ever think that everything is in your mobile? Never before 50 years, right? But now it's happening. So in the future it'll happen that. It is going to happen. What we need to do is how to adapt to that new things. That's what we need to do.
Thank you. So any more questions? So I have a question for you, Professor Sir John. Since you're in the research field and I'm a young researcher myself, what are the ethical considerations in the 21st century of using AI and machine learning in research?
Well, I'm sure that there are many, but there's one big one that stands out. particularly if it's deep learning based AI. It's a bit like the Douglas Adams novel, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where they set out to discover the meaning of life, the universe and everything. And the machine that they devised for it came up with an answer, and the answer was 42. And then they realized, oh, that's the answer, but we don't know what the question was, in a way. And in a silly way, I use that for one caution around AI. In certain areas, explainability is Really important. And with deep learning AI, we really don't have that. And where is that a problem? Well, in legal situations, in a trial, in medical situations, where you're making a judgment on what course to follow, not knowing why that's the course just might be important. So there are cautions around it. Now, I don't say that as a scaremongering or whatever, because I think, again, I noticed you said a lot and you said it so well. It takes a while for things to come through, quite a long time. We're actually still at an early stage. So the one caveat I would say is everything we've said is as we see it from where we are. That doesn't mean that that's exactly where we're going to be. But what we can be very sure is that there's an important and exciting journey that we're going to be on.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Lastly, we're going to end the session with 1 minute insight from each speaker, starting with Dr. Nancy.
Oh, I was hoping to go last. Now you guys have 4 minutes to prep. Yeah. Okay, so 1 minute.
Hi, bye.
Yeah, and on the future of education. So I think a lot of universities are going to close and people will choose to be slowly credentialed and you'll go to work to learn instead of go to school to get a job. Less than a minute.
That's all. Thank you so much, Your Excellency.
Yeah, I think we all know that future will be buildingless universities, buildingless banks, buildingless whatever service you're giving, buildingless except for some cases like research or activities. Learning will be completely buildingless. And that will be the future which is coming soon. And believe me, the Web3, which is coming, you will own a property in the metaverse. You will own a property in the metaverse. You buy and sell it, actually, through Bitcoin, whatever. I don't believe in Bitcoin, maybe the other ones. So at the end, everything will be through the parallel universe of virtual universe. Everything will be. You will be just treating with them, and you are here, and you will talk to everything, meet there, go there. You will be traveling distances in that parallel universe.
Thank you, Your Excellency. So, Professor?
I'd like to make reference to two things, just quickly.
Sure,
the first one is a novel by Nobel Prize-winning novelist Kazuo Ishiguro. And you'll know a couple of films that have been made from his well-known novels, but this is a less well-known one, and a small one, called Clara and the Sun. Clara has an artificial friend. And the novel is told through the voice of the artificial friend. And Clara's learning experience is spending time on her oblong. And her mother spends time on her oblong as well, doing things when she's talking and so on. And it took me a while to realize that was actually one of these. That was her learning experience. Yeah. And I guess one slight concern that I have about the emphasis we've placed on technology, not to take away from it the importance of it, but it's to do with the human dimension, which I think is really, really important. I quoted T.S. Eliot to you, and I said he must have been having a bad day with some of the things that he said in that. And it was the opening line, a caution, where is the life we have lost in living? Yeah, we do just need to remember what it's all about.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Professor. Dr. Hamad?
Yeah, I think despite all the things you spoke about technology, education will take longer time to change. History tells us it's a very slow process. The industry, the work, the technology will have a place, but that will take longer time to change.
I can't think why you're saying that. It's only taken Cambridge 800 years to get to where it is.
But now things are disruptive, so you have to look at that. You look at quantitative wave, every 60 years there's a change of economy. And it's getting smaller, smaller, smaller as it goes on. So that period.
Yeah, the world's speeding up for sure.
So on behalf of Trends Research and Advisory, I would like to thank all of our panelists here today for their insightful speeches. Thank you very much.
All right, so thank you, panelists. What an insightful and enlightening panels we've had over the past 2 days. I would like to conclude this conference with the following remarks. It is important that the educational process focuses on preparing and equipping learners and providing them with the skills and knowledge of the future, especially in the field of artificial intelligence and the requirements for the fourth industrial revolution. It is also important that smart education curricula focus on specialized mental skills, such as critical thinking, outside-the-box thinking, systematic analysis, problem solving, creativity, and collaboration, while acquiring risk-taking skills, taking calculated risks, and experimenting. While human capital is the main driving force for knowledge-based economic growth, and given the continuous education is the most common mechanism in pairing educational experience, it is also important to support continuous learning programs so that learning is not limited to schools and university age, becoming instead lifelong endeavor and requirement. It was a pleasure to present this conference. Thank you, everyone. Thank you all. Thank you.